Hey guys, it's Steve Bach. I'm from Grace Community Church and I'm the pastor in Wasco, California. And I just wanted to talk about the coronavirus and the emergency situation that we're in, and tell you a little story to start about panic. About a year ago, my heart was beating wildly and erratically. And this had been happening for quite some time, and I just ignored it. But finally, it got to the point where I really needed to go and find out what was wrong. And so I went to the local clinic and just tried to get a diagnosis and try to figure out, okay, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Well, I went in and there was a nurse, and she took my pulse. And when she took my pulse, I saw the look on her face. And the look on her face was sheer panic. And of course, when she panicked, I panicked. And I can remember it vividly. And I can remember afterwards, as I processed the whole situation, I was thinking about whether panic was the appropriate response in a situation like that. Because my understanding of Christianity is that when we come to Christ and we receive a new status in Him and we are renewed in Him and we receive the Holy Spirit, that one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit is peace. And peace and panic just seem mutually exclusive. They don't seem like they really go together. And essentially they don't. Essentially, panic and peace are two very different things. And so I prayed about it. I thought about it, and I realized that in a situation like that, my feelings as a human being and my reaction as a human being was normal. It was normal. It was an emergency situation. And it was normal to feel panic. But sometimes, when we think about our relationship with Christ and we think about what our reaction should be, they should be characterized by what's supernatural, well, not what's natural. And instead of feeling panic at that point, under any circumstances, in any emergency, you really should feel peace. Of course, right now in our country there's panic. We're in a national emergency. We have toilet paper shortages and disinfectant shortages and food shortages because people are basically in panic mode. And I think my job as a pastor is to bring some perspective at times like these. And this morning, as I was reading in the Bible, during my time with the Lord, I feel like He gave me a passage that might can help us all in terms of this issue of panic. It's in 2 Kings chapter 19, verse 1. That's the verse that really caught my attention. In order to understand 2 Kings 19 verse 1, I think we need to understand the context that's surrounding it, the historical context. Assyria is the superpower of the day, and Assyria in recent history, in terms of where this passage is situated, in terms of recent history, they have conquered Israel, the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel had been warned, and because of their sin and their disobedience to God, God said that a foreign power would come and would overcome them, and that was Assyria. They did that. Well, Assyria, as a superpower, was expansionistic and they wanted to increase their power and increase their wealth and increase their influence and increase their territory. And so they set their sights on Judah next. And Judah at the time was ruled by a king named Hezekiah. And there were many good kings in Judah. There were some that were not good kings. Kings were determined by their taking God seriously and taking his law seriously and looking out for the people of God. Hezekiah was a good king. He loved God and he loved his people, the people that God had made him accountable for, the people that God had entrusted to his care. Well, Assyria came against Judah. And Assyria was, like I said, they were ruthless. They were a ruthless foe. They were a ruthless enemy. And they were intent on conquering Judah. Well, what happened was they marched through fortified cities and defeated these fortified cities. And they marched right to the gate of Jerusalem, and they laid siege to the city. And the king of Assyria had sent envoys to taunt and mock and ridicule and threaten Hezekiah and the people of God. And Hezekiah, I can only imagine what was happening. You know, it was kind of like when I looked at the nurse and there was a sense of panic on her face, and then there was panic in my heart. And I'm sure my heart beat more erratically at that point. Well, I'm sure that Hezekiah was experiencing something probably a lot more serious than that, because this powerful nation threatened his very survival. They threatened extinction of this people. That's a reason to panic. No one would criticize Hezekiah for panicking, but panic is a default reaction by natural human beings, and yet it's a reflection of a lack of trust in God. And that's, I think, where the details of 2 Corinthians 19:1 come in. Hezekiah basically does three things. When he hears about what's happening, when he hears about these taunts and this ridicule that's coming from the envoys of Assyria, he does three things. And I think these three things reflect his faith in God. He does this. As soon as Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes. Now, that's not the kind of thing that we do when we're faced with a dire situation. But it's something that they did, and it was an act of humility. Hezekiah tore his clothes as an act of humility. It also says here that he put on sackcloth. And the third thing that he did is he went into the house of God. Now, what those actions signify and symbolize, the tearing of the clothes and the donning of sackcloth, they symbolize his utter humility and utter dependence on God. And then he prayed. He went into the temple of God that represented the very presence of God. He went into the temple of God and he prayed. And he said, God, here is this power, and I am helpless before it. You know, you've given me riches and wealth and resources and even an army. But before this enemy, I am powerless. But you are much more powerful than this enemy, and I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you to help your people. And I'm going to trust you to demonstrate your power and glory over this enemy. I'm going to trust you, Lord. because you're the great God. You're the living God. And what they say about you isn't true, but what you tell us about yourself is. And you tell us that if we'll trust you, you'll have our back. All right, just as with Hezekiah, this is a national emergency. Because we don't have all the details, we don't really know how dire the situation is. For Hezekiah, it was a dire situation. It was very serious. For us, it seems to be serious as well. I mean, it seems unprecedented. In my 61 years, I haven't seen anything like this. The social distancing, those sorts of things. But one thing's for sure, no matter what it is, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the emergency, God can be trusted. And that's what God's trying to develop in us right now. Whatever else is happening around us, however else our life is being altered and changed, we know one thing, that God is trying to develop within us trust in Him. Thank you for this time, and thank you for listening.